All right, today we're talking about Bliss, starring Owen Wilson and Salma Hayek. And, you know, I always worry about reviewing these type of movies. Movies that are more metaphorical, or they seem really mind-bending, but it's because they have some sort of underlying meaning, right? I think it's just that it's me not wanting to misinterpret them, and show that I clearly did not understand what the movie was. It's definitely my ego is what's preventing me from doing this, right? Maybe I interpret it wrong or I'm thinking too hard sometimes, but, I don't want to go really deep on something and then it turns out that I completely missed the message. But I feel like Bliss was pretty straightforward. There were a couple of different things that this movie could have been saying. But I think first and foremost, I think this movie is about drug addiction. Now this could be my own biased experience, but I'm almost positive the movie is about drug addiction and more precisely opioid addiction. Okay, so let me just start out from the beginning. So when the movie first started, I had no idea where it was going. But then, as it got a little further in, and some pretty wild things start happening in the lead character's life, like him developing magic powers from taking these magic pills, and then him kind of breaking with reality a little bit, right? And his family is struggling with this. You can see that there's something going on in their eyes that's not going on in his eyes. They have very different perspectives. Like his son has basically given up on him, but his daughter still believes in him. And we find out early in the film that his marriage has fallen apart. But so throughout this movie, as these delusions are building, I started to think it was more about mental health. Like originally, that's what I thought. This is about mental health. I thought the movie was portraying something like schizophrenia, right? Or some other type of mental health issue that was causing this guy's reality to fracture. But the more the story unfolded, and the more I looked back at how the movie started, I became more and more convinced that this was a movie about addiction. So, you have Owen Wilson, the main character in this movie. He's at his office, right, in the beginning, and he's in a daze. He's not really there, he's daydreaming a lot. And it's clear that his mind is not on what he's doing. He's not focused on his work, and he seems kind of depressed, But even when something seems urgent, there's a scene where his boss is calling him, right? And everything is frantic around the office, and his boss is calling him to his office over and over again. And this character's main concern is not getting to his boss's office. He's literally like blowing that off. His main concern is getting his prescription refilled. And at one point I thought, oh, well, that's his mental health medication, right? I thought back to the fact that, I thought about that for a second. And then I thought, wait a minute, they're refusing to give him another refill. Like, why would the pharmacy be doing that with mental health meds? And I know from personal experience that is exactly what happens when you're prescribed opioids. There is a definite limit placed on pain medication. And I don't feel like they would do that with mental health medication, especially for something extreme like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, or something that's serious and that's going to definitely affect your life soon after running out of the medication, right? So that was clue number one. And then later, you see his daughter and his son talking about him, right? He's not there. It's just these two characters. And it's clear that his son he's completely given up on this guy, right? This guy's let him down way too many times. And at one point, he's making fun of his dad. He's mimicking his dad. And he starts doing this thing where he's complaining about all these different injuries and ailments and how, basically how it's all bullshit. How his dad bullshits all the time, right? Like, there's always something wrong with him. And I get that. I have seen that firsthand. I've even done that. I've seen people perpetuate and exaggerate injuries to continue getting prescription medications for pain. And another thing that in this movie is that over and over, this movie keeps alluding to the idea of escape, right? Escaping the harsh reality of life, right? And that is a major component of addiction. It's about escape and denial and trying to just alleviate the pain of real life. In the movie, that's portrayed as another world. They're going to this much better world, or being powerful or invincible. No one could touch them. They've got powers, right? These are all staples of drug addiction and how drugs make you feel, right? Now, the character played by Salma Hayek, at first I thought maybe she's just another junkie, right? That fed his addiction even further and actually led him down a path to trying harder drugs, most likely heroin. That's usually the case. That's the gradual progression of opioid addiction. And I'm starting to wonder if her entire character was just a metaphor. It might have been a metaphor for the drug or for addiction itself. It was trying to convince him to stay, convince him that his life wasn't important, that his family wasn't important. All that mattered was getting back to bliss, right? Getting back to this alternate reality where everything's perfect and you don't have to worry about any of the pain and the hardship of real life. So that, I'm still not completely sure about that being a metaphor, but I almost think she was just a metaphor for the drug itself, right? Or for the addiction. You saw this also whenever he had been on the drug for a while, whatever the drug was, right? And as it started to wear off, her personality would drastically change. She would get violent with him. She would slap him. She would get upset and angry and unhinged, right? And I feel like it was a metaphor for, coming down from the drug, facing a harsh reality again. So, yeah, I think she was his graduation to harder and harder drugs and the addiction progressing. And one more thing that screamed addiction to me was the time lapses, right? Someone in deep addiction can definitely lose track of time and, can definitely become disoriented and forget very important things, right? This drug becomes all important. That's all they've been focused on, is feeding their addiction. Anyway, I thought it was a thoughtful movie. I enjoyed Owen Wilson. I enjoyed Salma Hayek in this very much. But yeah, a friend of mine suggested this movie, and he basically hinted when he suggested it that there was some metaphor in this movie, that it was trying to tell you something, and I think that there's definitely a message, and I think there's other things you could take from this movie, like life is beautiful and meaningful in spite of the pain, or maybe even because of the pain, because of the harshness, it helps you to appreciate the good, and I think it says a lot about that. There are many times in this movie where he has a chance to choose between living this hard and painful life, but, that has some beautiful things in it, or living a life free of all pain, And while that in itself is a pretty beautiful metaphor, I think that the metaphor for addiction is a little more obvious and hard-hitting. I mean, honestly, I think they go hand in hand, right? It's a movie about choosing to face life on life's terms. And enjoy the good, live through the hard times and enjoy the good, to appreciate that life is hard rather than try to escape. And that escape for a lot of people comes through using drugs, escaping reality. And that speaks a lot about addiction in itself. And that, usually people aren't habitually using drugs just to feel good. They're using it as a coping mechanism. They're using it to escape. They're coping with pain. But I think what the movie is saying is that it's important to face the pain and work through it rather than try to escape. And as the movie showed on several occasions, the escape, no matter how alluring it may be, it crushes you in the end, and with even greater consequence, right? And the final piece in the film that really made me feel that I understood what it was really about was the meeting that he wanders into at the end. I think it's fairly obvious that this is a meeting for addicts. although it could very well be some sort of mental health support group. To me, it felt very much like an NA meeting, especially with the fact that he walked into the place at random. As many addiction meetings are held at all hours of day and random locations. But a lot of times, at churches and community centers, you can just find them all throughout the city. So to me, that's what this felt like. And having attended several similar meetings myself, I feel pretty confident that this was a meeting for addicts of some sort. So, yeah, man, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I would definitely recommend it, and I'm curious to know if you guys got the same meaning as me, because, as I said, there are several metaphors in the film, and I feel like people can take from it several lessons. But for me personally, I feel it's mostly about drug addiction, and opioid addiction specifically. But, yeah, let me know. Let me know what you thought of the movie, if you think I interpret it correctly, or maybe as I feared, I completely missed the point. For what it's worth, I enjoyed the movie anyway, whether I got it or not. Even if I derived the wrong meaning from it, that's the cool thing, about film and art, right? A lot of people can interpret it in a lot of ways and get personal fulfillment from the experience. So, yeah, let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. And if you enjoy videos or podcasts like this, here's what I do on this channel and on the podcast. Every day, I try to pick a random topic, something that I'm interested in, and hopefully others are as well, and I talk about it. It's usually entertainment or pop culture related, but sometimes I delve into other things as well. But if that sounds like something you can vibe with, if you'd like to get something new and hopefully interesting in your feed every day, then please subscribe to the channel. And hit that notifications bell to make sure you see my next video. Or you can favorite or follow the podcast if you're cool with just the audio form. And if you decide to stick around, if you decide to favorite or follow or subscribe to the channel, then I will talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks. All right, today we're talking about